This Excel lesson is going to test your knowledge and understanding of all the material so far. So again, there won't be much hand holding because there's not really any new material. It's basically just an application, what you already know, all put together. So it's pretty cool because we're taking concepts from the financial management cycle, we're taking concepts from the distribution channels, and we're putting it together as you help me figure out and determine key financial performance metrics. And in the previous video, I talked about two specific ones that you need to determine for me today, which are RevPAR and net RevPAR. So of course, if you forget how to do some of the stuff, feel free to watch the previous videos. But again, it's really just a refresher of all the different formulas that you have learned before. And the date range that we're going to make it for today is from August 1st to August 25th. And so here are the formulas for each of them. RevPAR equals revenue earned divided by number of rooms available, and net RevPAR equals the difference between revenue earned and customer acquisition costs divided by rooms available. What I'm going to do now is deconstruct both of these formulas and walk you through how to use Excel to determine each specific component of the formula so you can calculate the metrics yourself. To start off, we have RevPAR, specifically revenue earned. And I mean, you've done this I don't know how many times, right? You've actually used two different methods in Excel to determine this for us. In the beginning, we learned SUMIFs, and we had to figure out restrictions, where they are, what they are. And recently, you learned to use an easier way via the pivot table. So for rooms available, this is a fixed number. At the Ramada, we always have 71 rooms available every single day of the year. So let's say my revenue earned on August 1st is $5,000. It would be $5,000 divided by 71 to determine the RevPAR for that date. But before you go off and do your calculations, I want you to think back on a couple lessons ago when you determined our unreported commission costs. You used the if formula that called out our net rates reservations. What you did was convert these net rates to gross rates. You basically figured out the actual rates, the rate before that commission is deducted. Then you calculated the difference between the net rate and the actual rates to find out our unreported commission costs. So why am I bringing this up? Well, here's the point. This unreported commission cost that you calculated a couple lessons ago also tells us something else that's very important. It tells us our unreported revenue earned. It tells us our unreported revenue earned. So unreported commission cost equals unreported revenue earned. And think about it. Let's use our friend Fernando Lopez as an example. So even though on our PMS it says $70, this guy here is actually a net rates reservation. So he paid $86. And so we actually did earn $86. This $16 difference, 86 minus 70, isn't just unreported commission cost, it's also $16 that we should have earned. And this should be included as part of this revenue earned for the purpose of this RevPAR metric. So again, just to recap, for RevPAR, specifically this revenue earned component, we need to make sure that unreported revenue earned is included, because if we don't do anything, there are net rate reservations that undervalue our revenue earned and will therefore make our RevPAR inaccurate. Now that you understand the key concept behind determining RevPAR, the revenue earned actually should be redefined as gross revenue earned because we're including the unreported revenue earned. And it's basically a two-step process to make sure unreported revenue earned is captured. Step one is what you learned a few lessons back, where you used the if formula to target all of our net rate reservations. this formula targeted these specific reservations by looking into their rate plans, and it then converted their net rates to reflect the actual rates. This conversion sets it up where all of our rates are now the actual rates that the guest paid, and it ensures any unreported revenue earned is included. Now this next part is tricky, step 2, because once this conversion is done on guest data, we want to apply this conversion to our accounting data, because if you think about it, at the end of the day, we calculate revenue earned not by guest data, we calculate revenue earned by accounting data. And this is done by using VLOOKUP, because VLOOKUP serves as a bridge. So we can go back to our example, Fernando Lopez, to better illustrate this. So as I mentioned, this is a net rate reservation where even though this is $70, you now know that the guest actually paid $86. But now notice how this is in guest data. And if we go to accounting data, so I'm going to filter to room charge because room charge tells us revenue earned, and I'm going to filter to Fernando Lopez. The amount here still says $70. The amount here still reflects the net rate. So what I want to do is somehow apply the conversion we made on guest data. You did all the work on guest data and we're able to get what we want, the actual rates. But we need to somehow figure out how to apply this conversion to accounting data, because as you notice, it's still showing the net rates. It's not fixing the rates what we want, which is the actual rates. And this is done by the VLOOKUP, because once the VLOOKUP is created, it serves as a bridge, and as you can see, the formula now fixes that rate to what we want, which is the gross rates. So this is a two-step process, right? We first use the if formula to convert net rate to gross rates, net rate to the actual rates, and this is done in the guest data tab. But again, revenue earned is determined not via the guest data tab, it's determined via the accounting data tab. VLOOKUP really solves this problem. By serving as a bridge, it's able to apply this conversion to accounting data. After this two-step process, when it's time to determine revenue earned, you want to make sure to completely disregard this column here in the accounting data, column K, right? This column here is now useless because we want to go off of the converted numbers, which is this column here, column M. This now takes us to NRevPAR, where the goal is to determine our net revenue performance. So the idea here is to deduct or subtract our customer acquisition cost. And the method is really done the same way. We're still using the if formula. The only difference now is that we don't touch net rate reservations at all. In fact, net rate reservations is what we're trying to get. Net rate reservations is our end goal. The shady way, where they have already deducted the cost, is essentially what this formula is all about. It's revenue earned minus customer acquisition costs. We need to worry about our Hotel Collect reservations, the Big Brother reservations. Hotel Collect reservations reflect the actual amounts that the guest paid, the gross rates, before commission costs are deducted. And the goal here is to convert all of these gross rates, all of the Hotel Collect reservations, to net rates. So again, it's still using nested if formulas just like you did with net rates, but we use different rate plans because again, we're targeting Hotel Collect reservations. So I'm gonna attach a cheat sheet to specify which rate plans are net rate reservations and which rate plans are Hotel Collect reservations, and I'll have the formulas there so you can undergo the conversions. But if you were to remember one thing, it's this. For RevPAR, it's all about converting net rate to gross rate, whereas for net RevPAR and RevPAR, we're converting it from gross rates back to net rate. We can clarify this NRevPAR formula. It's essentially net revenue earned divided by number of available rooms. And again, when you determine this net revenue earned, you want to disregard column K and you want to go off of our converted numbers, column N. So to summarize, here's a recap of what you have to do today. I want you to calculate our two metrics, RevPAR and NRevPAR for the designated dates, which is this date range. The right approach is a two-step process, right? Step one is we want to do a conversion. So for RevPAR, you want to focus on all of our net rate reservations and convert net rate to gross rate using the IF formula. For NRevPAR, you want to focus on our hotel collect reservations and convert gross rates to net rate using the IF formula. So for RevPAR, the goal is to determine unreported revenue earned, and for NRevPAR, the goal is to make sure we're deducting or taking away all of the customer acquisition costs. After this conversion, we use the VLOOKUP formula because this serves as a bridge. So this is step two, where we're applying the conversion that you did in guest data to accounting data. And finally, after everything is done, after we convert and after we apply the conversion, we can either use the pivot table or the SUMIFS formula to determine our gross revenue earned or our net revenue earned. But again, be mindful that you want to make sure to disregard column K because you did all the hard work to using if and VLOOKUP to have our converted numbers, and you want to go off of these converted numbers. Last but not least, I want to pose a challenge for you because in the previous video I mentioned how things are now starting to get analytical. I want you to look at my RevPAR and my NRevPAR metrics, and I want you to tell me which days of the week I perform best. I'll leave that up to you to figure out, and if you can derive any other trends from just this data, I'd be very interested to see what you come up with. So this lesson, again, it really is going to just test your knowledge. We're not just testing your Excel proficiency, we're also testing your understanding of all these different concepts, with the financial management cycle, with the distribution channels, with hotel collect and net rate reservations.